One morning, Chibiko woke up. He stretched, as usual. He pulled off his covers and got out of bed, as usual. He showered and cleaned himself up, as usual. He went to prepare breakfast, as usual. Now, I say as usual because Chibiko does indeed usually eat breakfast. He's only missed breakfast one time in the past year, and that was because he thought he saw a butterfly in his house, and by the time he had finished searching for it, it was already lunchtime. What is less usual, less recurring, is what Chibiko has for breakfast. Sometimes he has toast. Oftentimes, he has a bowl of cereal. There are also times where he might have waffles, bacon and eggs or porridge, yogurt, fresh fruit, or even fish and rice. This day, he decided to make pancakes. Chibiko got his pancake mix and eggs and milk and whisked them all together in a bowl. Then, he heated his pan, added some butter, and poured the goopy mixture in. He waited for his pancake to show bubbles and then, because he was feeling brave and quite clever, instead of using a spatula to flip it over, he picked up the frying pan and tossed his pancake in the air. 1, 2, 3. He counted while waiting to catch it again. 4, 5, 6. It was starting to occur to Chibiko that his pancake was taking a while to come down again. 7, 8, 9. Something had to be wrong. Chibiko looked up and... Oh no! His pancake was stuck to the ceiling! Chibiko tried jumping, but he couldn't get high enough to reach the pancake. Next, he tried standing on a chair, but the ceiling was simply too high. Chibiko's tummy rumbled. Whatever would he do? He was too small to get the pancake down again. Suddenly, he had an idea. He went to the closet and came back with a broom. Its handle was very long, and with it he was able to reach the roof. But he was very clumsy and kept on missing his pancake. Instead, he hit the roof with a tap, tap, tap. It seemed hopeless. But then Chibiko heard a thud. And then another. He had made the feet upstairs angry, and they were stomping to let him know. Thud. 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 That last thud was big, and Chibiko closed his eyes with surprise for just a second. When he opened them again, he saw his pancake flying down towards his face. Splat! The pancake landed perfectly on his face, and so Chibiko sucked it into his mouth with one big slurp. Well, he thought to himself, that's one way to eat breakfast. He would have to take another shower, but at least his breakfast had been delicious. It was a pleasant enough day, but as is often the case with pleasant enough days, it was also a little bit boring. Yesterday, Chibiko had been looking forward to a day of doing nothing, but now he was beginning to wish that he had made some plans. At least the summer sun would not set until late, and so Chibiko decided that maybe he could go for a walk and look for something to do. And so he opened his door, left his house, closed his door, and walked down the street. Chibiko walked for a bit, and eventually found himself at the entrance to Button Park. Off in the distance, you could see what looked like different enticing candies standing up and decorating the grass. Candy, he thought to himself. I like candy. Cotton candy in particular. And so he walked towards the giant-looking candies to see what was happening. As he got closer, Chibiko saw that what he had thought to be large candies weren't actually candies at all. Rather, they were a mix of different stalls and rides. That's right, Chibiko remembered. The town fair is very soon. They must be setting up and getting ready for it. Without even realizing it, Chibiko had wandered into the fair, even though it wasn't open yet. He started to feel nervous. Was he going to get into trouble? He decided that he should try and sneak away. But just as he turned around, he heard a voice. You there! Who are you? Chibiko froze in his tracks, suddenly very frightened. Turn around, the voice said. Chibiko did as he was told, and turned around to see the carrot that was speaking to him. The carrot gave Chibiko a meatball. It was very yummy, and Chibiko said so. No sooner had he done this, however, than a stick of celery called him over. It wanted Chibiko to try its cheese sticks. They were also very good. Then a radish gave him some pizza to try. A tomato some fried chicken, an aubergine some mutton curry, and a spring onion had him try its pork adobo. All of it was scrumptious, and Chibiko was feeling quite full. Almost too full to eat. He was ready to tell the squash that he only had space left for fairy floss, but it turned out that the squash wanted Chibiko to try a spinning chair ride. Since he didn't have to eat anything, Chibiko agreed. The spinning chair ride was a lot of fun. It was almost like driving a race car, and... Uh-oh. Chibiko looked down and realized that he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. Seconds later, he went flying from his chair and landed in a kind of metal bin filled with tiny pink crystals. At first, Chibiko thought his head was spinning, but then he realized that it was the bin that was spinning, and he was in it. The pink crystals seemed to turn into clouds around him, and when the spinning eventually stopped, he was covered in a huge ball of cotton candy. Oops, sorry about that, said the broccoli that had been manning the cotton candy cart. No problem, Chibiko replied. I love cotton candy. And with that, Chibiko ate all of the cotton candy that was covering him, and, since he was now quite sticky, decided to go home to take a shower. He felt a little bit sick, but he was very happy. One day, Chibiko woke up with a song stuck in his head. It was a song about wheels on a bus going round, and about daddies sleeping, and mummies hushing, and drivers honking. He hummed it as he got out of bed. He hummed it as he took a shower. He hummed it while he made his breakfast. And he hummed it with a mouthful of toast, which caused him to splutter a bit. After he was done eating and cleaning up his mess, the song was still stuck in his head. And so he decided that there was only one thing he could do about it. He would go out and ride a bus. And so he went out and walked towards the nearest bus stop. Partway there, Chibiko realized that he was going to ride the bus for a long time. But he had forgotten to pack any lunch. And so he popped into the donut shop that was on the way. The donut shop was amazing. It had all kinds of donuts. Sugar glazed donuts, donuts with chocolate frosting, donuts filled with strawberry jam, slug flavored donuts. There were also small donut balls and, most impressive of all, there were big donuts. Really big donuts. One donut was about as big as Chibiko himself, and so he bought it and rolled it with him to the bus stop. The bus came after only a few minutes, and Chibiko rolled his donut on board, bought a ticket for both it and himself, and after deciding that since he paid for the tickets and thus should be the one who got to sit beside the window, sat with his giant donut on a seat towards the back of the bus, right by the window. As the bus drove around town, Chibiko saw many different things. There were some buildings that were pointy and some buildings that were curved. There were some trees that were green and some trees that were pink. He saw restaurants that served food he had never heard of before. He saw places where he could play sports like tennis or basketball or soccer. When the driver asked him where he wanted to get off, Chibiko replied that he had decided to just stay on until the bus looped back to where he got on. He was enjoying his day a lot. But then, disaster. The bus suddenly became very bumpy, and then it slowed down, and then it stopped. "Oh dear," said the bus driver. "I think we have a flat tire." Chibiko got out with the driver and looked at the tire. The driver was right. It was flat. According to the driver, they would have to wait for the bus company to bring a new tire, and that might take hours. "Oh no," Chibiko thought. "I want to go home soon." The driver got his phone out from his pocket to make a call. But then Chibiko had an idea. "Wait here," he said, and disappeared into the bus. A couple of minutes later, Chibiko came back out with his giant donut. "Can we use this?" he asked. "You know, maybe we can," the driver said. "It's a good thing that your donut really is very big." And so, the driver replaced the flat tire with Chibiko's donut. The ride was still a bit bumpy because the donut wasn't the exact same size as the wheels, but it was much better than before. And so the driver took Chibiko home. After he got off from the bus and walked back to his house, Chibiko thought about how lucky it was that he hadn't eaten the big donut. It really was too big for him, and he still wasn't very hungry. Besides, he figured that he should eat something a bit more healthy for dinner anyway. One day, Chibiko woke up with his face down in his pillow. He breathed in and... Yuck! It smelled really bad. He quickly jumped out of bed, removed his pillowcase, and threw it into the laundry. The smell on the pillowcase had to have come from somewhere though. And after some thinking, Chibiko decided that the smell must have come from his own head. When was the last time he had shampooed anyway? He couldn't remember. And so, Chibiko headed to the shower with a bottle of shampoo in hand. Once the water was nice and warm, and he was wet all over, Chibiko squeezed a little shampoo onto his hand. Then, he squeezed a little bit more. Was that enough? He wasn't really sure. All that he was sure about was that it had been a long time since the last time, so maybe it would be safest to squeeze out some more. Chibiko made sure that his head was wet and then started to scrub in the shampoo. It became foamy very quickly, and soon he had to close his eyes so as to stop the soap suds from hurting them. It had been a long time since he had last washed his head though, and so he continued to scrub and scrub and scrub. Because his eyes were shut, Chibiko didn't notice that all of the bubbles and foam from his shampoo had grown so large that they had gotten too big for just the shower and had now covered his sink and filled his bedroom. Chibiko started to hum as he scrubbed. Hum, hum, hum. The suds continued to grow. They filled his living room. They reached his dining room. They started to fill the kitchen. In the laundry, Chibiko had also used too much soap for his pillow sheet, and his washing machine was starting to overflow with bubbles of its own. They filled the laundry room, and then they went into the rest of Chibiko's home and mixed with the bubbles from the shampoo. Soon, bubbles were being forced to escape from Chibiko's windows. People outside could see them floating through the sky. Chibiko ran water over his head. He washed his face and opened his eyes. Everything he could see was white. White everywhere. His entire home was filled with foam and bubbles. He pushed his way through, got a towel and dried himself. Then, unsure what to do, he found his bed and decided to take a nap. When he woke up, all of the bubbles had faded away and his home was sparkling clean. Whew, he thought, that's lucky. Not only are all of the bubbles gone, but it looks like I don't have to clean the house anymore. And so he made and ate some breakfast. And when it came time to clean his plates, he was very careful to use only a little bit of dish soap. One day, Chibiko slept for so long that when he woke up, it was already getting dark outside again. Oh dear, he thought to himself. I'm wide awake and it's almost bedtime again. What should I do? Chibiko wasn't used to being up so late. Daytime was for being awake and nighttime was for sleeping. Whatever did people do during nighttime anyway? He thought about this for a moment, and then it hit him. people watch movies in their homes at nighttime. At least, he thought that was one thing that they might do. And so, Chibiko got a bowl of popcorn and sat himself down in front of his television with his remote in hand so that he could see what movies there were to watch. There were funny movies, there were cartoons, and there were romantic movies. There were also action movies. Chibiko imagined what it might be like to be a kung fu master. Sad movies, and movies about real life. There were also scary movies. Ah, Chibiko thought, scary movies are what people watch late at night. I'll watch a scary movie. And so, Chibiko chose a scary movie, sat back, and started to eat his popcorn. The movie was very scary, and after a while, Chibiko could swear that he saw a spider creeping towards him from the corner of the room. Chibiko thought that he should get up from his chair and go to another room, but when he tried to, he found that he was too scared to move. The shadowy object got closer and closer and closer. And then it said, "Hello! Gah!" Chibiko started to shriek, but then he paused. He had been expecting a roar, or an evil laugh, or maybe something like the sound of nails on a chalkboard. Instead, he had heard a simple hello. It was a friendly sounding hello too. It even sounded a little bit shy, like maybe it was also scared. Chibiko opened his eyes. "Hello," the thing said again. "My name is Danny. I live in the treehouse next door." Danny reached out a thin arm and Chibiko shook his hand. "Nice to meet you," he said. "Would you like to watch this movie with me? I think we'd both feel braver if we had a friend to watch with." And so, thanks to a scary movie, Chibiko became friends with a little triangle that had been hiding near his home. One morning, while eating scrambled eggs for breakfast, Chibiko started to remember how much trouble he had had when learning to cook different things. Even now, he didn't have a cookbook or a website with instructions that he could follow. He made food from his own memory. Sometimes he got things right the first time, but other recipes took many tries. There was the time when he couldn't figure out how much salt to put on his fried pork and ended up using far too much. There was the time when he didn't know how long to leave his waffles cooking for. There was also the time when he didn't know what size pot to use for his sinigang soup. And there was the incident with his attempted Sunday roast. As he finished up his breakfast, it occurred to him that the reason he had so much trouble learning to cook new things was because he wasn't very good at counting. And so, he decided to dedicate this day to get better at counting to 10. First, he tried to count his fingers. 1, 2. Well, that was easy enough. he looked around his house for other things to count. Aha! Windows! 1, 2, 3. 3 windows! He was still a few numbers away from 10, however. And so he looked around for more things. Cushions, he decided. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, that wasn't a cushion. That was Danny. What are you doing? Danny asked. I'm practicing counting, Chibiko said. But I'm having trouble finding 10 things to count. I'm sorry that I thought you were a cushion. It's an easy mistake to make, Danny said. My mother always said that I was a bit cushiony. Do you want me to help you find some things to count? Yes, please, Chibiko said. Danny thought for a moment, and then he walked around Chibiko's house and collected all of the cups that had been lying around. Chibiko can be a bit messy with cups. Here, he said, try counting these. Chibiko looked at the collection of cups and started pointing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. Wait! Danny said. You forgot 7! Oh, Chibiko said. He started to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Stop! Danny said. You did it again! Did I? Chibiko asked. You did, Danny replied. Just remember that 10 is scared of 7. Do you know why? Why? Chibiko asked. Because 7, 8, 9, Danny answered, and then laughed so hard that he fell off of the sofa. Chibiko didn't laugh. He was focusing very hard. He started pointing at all of the cups again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10! I did it! He beamed. Congratulations! Danny said. It was getting late, and the stars were coming out in the sky. Danny and Chibiko both looked out at the stars through the window. Chibiko practiced counting to 10 with the stars, and then he counted to 20, and then to 30. There were so many of them, and they were very beautiful, although some of them were black. Wait, no, those were ants. Chibiko sighed. He was going to have to remember to pack the sugar away, or else he would be counting to 1,000. Some time ago, when he was younger, Chibiko had decorated the walls of his house with lots of stickers. He had used all sorts of stickers. He had farm animals and dinosaurs, superheroes and racing cars, cartoon characters and different planets. His favorite one was of a manta ray that glowed in the dark at night once he had turned the lights off. The stickers were a bit old now though, and so Chibiko decided that it was about time that he peeled them off. He started with a dinosaur, but when he peeled it, oh no! He had peeled some of the paint away too. He peeled off a few more stickers, and then some more, and then even more. Each time he peeled a sticker off, he peeled some paint off as well. By the time he was finished, his wall was covered in spots where there wasn't any paint anymore. This just won't do, Chibiko thought to himself. A wall needs to be nicely painted. And so he went out to buy some paint. While at the hardware store and trying to decide if he wanted red, blue, or yellow paint for his walls, Chibiko ran into Danny. "Not sure what color you want?" Danny asked. "No, I'm not," Chibiko answered. "I like red because it makes me think of yummy apples and cherries. I like blue because it's like looking at the sky on a sunny day. And I like yellow because it's like sand on the beach." "Why not buy one of each and then decide when you're back in your house?" Danny suggested. "I can help you paint." Chibiko was grateful for both Danny's suggestion and his offer of help. And so they bought 3 tins of paint and 2 brushes and went back to Chibiko's home together. Once they were inside, they decided that maybe they could paint different rooms in new, different colors. They painted the bedroom yellow because the sun was yellow, and a yellow room would also make Chibiko think of sunflowers. After this, they got out the red paint and started to paint Chibiko's kitchen, because red wasn't just the color of apples and cherries, but also of strawberries and rhubarb and tomato soup, and many other delicious things. Last but not least, they painted his living room blue, because it was the biggest room, and because things like the ocean are also very, very big. When they were finished, they decided that they deserved a drink of orange juice. The only problem was, Danny couldn't see Chibiko anywhere. "Where are you?" Danny asked. "Over here," Chibiko replied. But when Danny looked at where Chibiko's voice had come from, he could see nothing but blue. "I can't see you," Danny said. "But I'm right here," Chibiko replied. "Let's just go to the kitchen and get our orange juice," Danny said. When they went to the kitchen, they realized what the problem was. Chibiko had painted himself blue. All of that painting in different colors had made him confused. "Let's just paint the rooms again tomorrow. Maybe to the same colors that they were before we started," Chibiko said, as he put some ice into 2 glasses to make sure that their juice would be nice and cold. Chibiko was bored. He sat on the sofa, stared at the wall, and sighed. He had spent the whole afternoon watching TV, and it wasn't even good TV. It was boring TV. He had been watching the television simply because he couldn't think of anything more interesting to do than watching television. And now he was wishing that he hadn't spent so much time watching. He could have drawn some pictures, or learned to cook something new, or tried to play the guitar. The only problem was, he didn't know what he wanted to draw, whether he wanted to make a green curry or perhaps bake a cake, or indeed what song he wanted to play. "Perhaps I could go somewhere," he thought to himself as he got up and looked out of his window. But the afternoon was growing late, and the moon was now already faintly visible in the sky. It would soon be nighttime, and the night was too dark for Chibiko to comfortably go out and about. He looked back at his sofa. He looked out of the window again, and then he had an idea. Chibiko picked up his phone and called Danny. "Are you free tomorrow?" he asked. "I have an idea for something we can do." Chibiko went to his storeroom and got all of the empty cardboard boxes that he could find. He then made a simple dinner for himself that may have contained a few too many onions. And then he went to bed. He was looking forward to what he and his friend would do the following day. The next morning, Chibiko woke up the second his alarm sounded. He was very excited. He took a shower, ate breakfast, and brushed his teeth. Then, his doorbell rang. Danny had arrived exactly on time. "What are we doing?" Danny asked. "Follow me," Chibiko said, and led his friend to the pile of boxes. "Can you help me bring these out to the backyard?" he said. And so, Danny and Chibiko spent the morning moving boxes to Chibiko's backyard and arranging them. They took a break to eat lemon-flavored cookies and drink mango lassi. And then in the afternoon, they moved the sofa. It was very heavy, but Chibiko promised that it would be worth the effort. At last, they were done. "We did it!" Chibiko exclaimed. "Did what?" Danny asked. "Look," Chibiko said, pointing to the body of boxes surrounding his sofa. "We built a spaceship." "Wow!" Danny said. "Can we ride it?" "Of course we can," Chibiko replied. And so, as the afternoon turned to evening and the moon slowly rose in the sky, Chibiko and Danny sat comfortably on the sofa of their very own spaceship and went on a space adventure together. It was a beautiful day, nice and warm and not a cloud in the blue sky. Actually, that's not quite right. It was clear and sunny, but there was at least a cloud in the sky. In fact, Chibiko could see a total of 3. Still, 3 clouds is pretty good, and these were friendly, fluffy white clouds. Chibiko stood out behind his house and watched them while enjoying the sunlight. After staring at them for a bit, he couldn't help but notice that they were forming together into something that looked a lot like an ice cream cone. Ice cream! Ice cream would be a perfect snack for a day as pleasant and warm as this one. Chibiko went inside and opened his freezer. To his disappointment, there was no ice cream left inside it. And so, he also checked in the closet, behind his television, and even inside a shoe. But there was no ice cream to be found. Never mind, he thought to himself. It's such a nice day. I'm sure that they're selling ice cream in the park. And it's a perfect day to take a walk. And so, Chibiko went out, locked the front door, and walked to Button Park. Sure enough, there was ice cream for sale at the park. Chibiko walked up to the cart. "Hello," said the ice cream salesperson. "What will you have today?" Chibiko stared at the list of flavors. It was really long, and thought out loud about all of the flavors that he might like on his cone. Ooh, chocolate, strawberry, mango, bubblegum, banana would be good. caramel swirl, double chocolate, melon mix, green tea, cheese, cookies and cream, passion fruit. Oh wow, I have to try the hamburger flavor, but also stewed apple, maple syrup, ooh, and crispy mint chip. Here you go, he heard a voice say. Chibiko looked up at the salesperson. He hadn't realized that he had been speaking out loud the whole time, and now he had accidentally ordered 16 different flavored scoops of ice cream. Thank you, he said nervously, and took the very tall ice cream cone. Chibiko's ice cream really was very tall, and he had to walk very carefully. At least it was a nice day to walk. The sun was out, the clouds were fluffy, and birds were chirping. A lot of birds, in fact. As he walked, Chibiko decided to count each one he saw fly by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, 10 already. Wait, no. 11, 12, 13. Almost home. 14. 15! Wow, thought Chibiko. 15 birds. He dug out his key, opened his door, and went through to his backyard to eat his ice cream. It was only then that he realized that he didn't have 16 flavors any longer. All he had was 1 scoop of chocolate ice cream. Oh well, he thought to himself, 16 scoops is too much for just me anyway. And so he enjoyed eating his scoop of chocolate ice cream. In the near distance, he could make out some slightly round-looking birds sitting in the tree beside his house. Chibiko woke up feeling excited. This was because he had dreamed that he was surfing. In his dream, he was very good at it. He had a cool mustache, wore cool sunglasses, and he rode big waves and did cool tricks with whales and dolphins. He thought about surfing as he took a shower. He thought about surfing as he ate some eggs for breakfast. He was still thinking about surfing while he was brushing his teeth. Eventually, Chibiko decided that he should go to the beach. It was a lovely, warm day after all. And so, he left his house, got on the bus, and rode to Bear Bells Beach. Luckily for Chibiko, it was still nice and sunny when he got to the beach, but it also wasn't very crowded. Chibiko put on some sunscreen and then went over to the small set of shops to borrow a surfboard. While he had dreamed of surfing like a pro, since this would be his first time to try surfing for real, the woman at the store also gave Chibiko some floaties to wear while he was in the water. Chibiko said thanks and then rushed out in such excitement that he almost toppled over someone's sandcastle. "Oops, sorry," Chibiko said. "It's okay. Please just be careful," said the children who were working on what was looking like it would become a very big sandcastle by the end of the day. "Are you going surfing?" "Yup," Chibiko said, his voice bubbling with pride and excitement. "That's so cool," one of the kids replied. Surfing looks like fun, but also kind of scary. Are you good at surfing? Another kid asked. I don't know, Chibiko said. This is my first time. Good luck, the kids all said together. Let us know how hard it is. Chibiko waved to the kids as he ran off to the water. Ah, he thought once he reached it. It's cold! After a couple of minutes, he got used to the water's temperature and so waded out deeper and climbed onto his surfboard. He rolled off 2 seconds later. Splash! Surfing in real life was much harder than it had been in his dream. Chibiko climbed back on and tried to stand up. A wave came and flipped him headfirst into the water. Splash! Chibiko climbed on again, and this time held on tight to his surfboard. Many waves came and splashed him around, but he didn't let go. He wondered if he looked silly, but at least he was having fun. Soon, Chibiko's arms got tired just as a big wave was coming. It threw him and his surfboard so far that he almost landed on the sand. He decided that it was time to return the surfboard and ride the bus back home for dinner. He picked up his board and walked back to the store, past the children who had now built a massive, spectacular sandcastle. How is surfing? They all asked at once. It's pretty difficult, Chibiko told them. But I did get this cool mustache, he said, pointing to the seaweed that had become stuck to his face. It was a nice day. The sun was out and the air was crisp. This was perfect for Chibiko, as he had decided that today he would go hiking in the mountains near his house. He ate a healthy breakfast of different fruits, and then packed his bag, making sure to include a few snacks for energy, as well as a bottle of water, as it was important not to get too thirsty when you go hiking. Then he slapped on some sunscreen, went outside, and rode the bus to the foot of the nearest mountain. It was much bigger than he had expected up close. This hike might take all day. Well, no time to waste then, Chibiko thought. And so he started to walk up the mountain path. Soon he was sweating, even though the weather wasn't hot. Wow, hiking can be tough. Luckily, the higher he got, the more trees there were, so he could keep out of the sun. But then suddenly, he ran into a tree snake. Hiss! Oh no, I have a chocolate bar, Chibiko said as he pulled the treat from his backpack. The snake looked at the chocolate bar, sniffed it, and then smiled. Whew! Safe. Chibiko continued to hike up the mountain. But a few minutes later, he bumped into a bear. Growl. Oh no, I have this tuna sandwich, Chibiko said as he pulled his lunch out from his backpack. The bear looked at the sandwich and examined it closely. It smiled. Whew, safe again. Chibiko continued to hike up the mountain path. A couple of scares aside, It had been quite a pleasant day, and Chibiko was sure that he was getting some good exercise, as well as some nice fresh air. Suddenly, a gorilla appeared in front of him. It beat its chest. Thump, thump, thump. Oh no, I have a... Chibiko frantically searched the contents of his backpack. I have this box of animal crackers! The gorilla took the box and opened it. It looked very closely as it pulled out its first cracker. It was a monkey animal cracker. Oh no, the gorilla is very angry. Quick, run down the hill! Chibiko ran as fast as he could. Bye bear! Bye snake! Ah! The gorilla was still behind him. Quick, to the bus stop, wait for the bus, get on the bus, pay your fare, ride the bus. Chibiko checked the window before getting off the bus. Whew. Safe. He thanked the driver, got off, went home and opened the fridge so that he could cool down with a nice glass of orange juice. Well, that was exciting, he thought to himself. I wonder if I should stay inside tomorrow. Chibiko came home with a large paper bag full of groceries. It was quite heavy, and he had had some trouble opening the front door. But he eventually got inside and went to the kitchen to unpack. This was the first time that he had been shopping in some time, and so he had bought a lot of food. He had milk and cheese, some bread, some pork and some chicken, a few snacks, and some vegetables. He packed everything away. That's pretty lucky, he thought to himself as he put the last bag of candy in a cabinet. The bag was starting to tear open. A few more minutes and I might have lost everything. He then made himself a grilled cheese sandwich for dinner, brushed his teeth, and went to bed. Chibiko! A voice said. Chibiko groaned and turned his face into his pillow. Chibiko! The voice said again. Chibiko sat up and rubbed his eyes. Danny was in his bedroom. Chibiko really needed to get better about locking his door when he was home. You won't believe it! Danny's voice was almost shouting. Chibiko couldn't tell if his friend was excited or afraid. Believe what? Chibiko asked. Follow me! Danny said, and then rushed out of the bedroom. Chibiko got up and followed his friend, through the living room and to his front door. He couldn't believe his eyes. There was an enormous pumpkin in his front yard. I could hear it growing when I was trying to sleep last night, Danny said. Isn't it incredible? I wonder how it got here. Chibiko stood in thought. Jelly beans quite often appeared in his front yard, but a pumpkin? That was something new entirely. Just how did it get there? Oh, Chibiko said as he suddenly realized something. There was a small hole in my shopping bag yesterday. Maybe a small pumpkin or something fell out before I got inside? That makes sense, Danny said. Pumpkins can be kind of weird and magical at this time of year. I wonder what we should do with this one. It looks delicious. Chibiko wasn't really sure if pumpkins were magic at any time of the year. but it was true that there was a very big one in his front yard right now. "I think it's a bit too big for us to eat it all," Chibiko began. "What if we turn it into a swimming pool?" Danny suggested. "I, don't think so," Chibiko replied. "What about a hot tub?" Danny said. "Wouldn't that basically be like taking a bath in pumpkin soup?" Chibiko said. "I guess so," Danny said. His voice sounded a little disappointed. "Why don't we just decorate it?" Chibiko said. "In fact, your body might be the perfect shape to measure the eyes with." Danny seemed to like this idea, and so they set about using him to measure and cut out some eyes on the giant pumpkin. It was a lot of fun, but all of the measuring and cutting was very hard work, and it was already starting to get dark by the time they were done. "I don't think we have time to cut out a proper mouth," Chibiko said. "It's getting late." "Don't worry," Daddy beamed and quickly ran off to his treehouse. Chibiko was curious about what Danny was doing, but he didn't have to wait long. Danny returned with a box of crayons. "I find it scary if we cut out a normal mouth," he said as he offered Chibiko a choice of color. "Let's just draw one in our own style." And so, Chibiko and Danny worked together to create a very large and very unique jack-o'-lantern. It wasn't scary, but it wouldn't have mattered. They were both exhausted and had fallen asleep before they could even eat dinner and get to their beds. One afternoon, Chibiko was looking out the window at his backyard and wondering what he could do. His backyard was a bit messy. Dirty really, because there was a lot of dirt. But it didn't have many fun things in it. No swing set, no basketball hoop, no vegetable garden, nothing. He returned to his living room and looked at his TV, just in time to see a story about a dog that had dug a hole while looking for a bone that it had buried years ago. Instead of a bone, though, it had found a nugget of gold. Apparently, it was worth a lot of money. Chibiko looked at the picture of the gold nugget in amazement. And then an idea hit him. He could look for gold in his own backyard. He had lots of space to dig in after all. And so, he dug around his old chesty he called it, until he found a spade, and went out into his backyard. If Chibiko's memory from watching pirate cartoons was correct, then if there was any treasure to be found, it would be buried beneath a big letter X, often red in color. Chibiko wandered around his backyard in search of a big red X, but he found nothing. After walking around 3 times, he found a patch in the grass that looked a bit like an X. It was his best lead, and so he got his spade and started digging. Dirt went everywhere. It got all over the grass, colored his windows brown, and made Chibiko himself very dirty. Even though he did a lot of digging, Chibiko had found no signs of gold. Perhaps there was gold buried in a different part of his yard. Chibiko's hole was quite deep though. He jumped once and fell back down. He jumped twice and fell down again. He jumped a third time and climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed until he got out. Phew! Clearly, looking for a big red X wasn't working. Chibiko went back inside, showered, and again dug around inside Chesty. 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 37 minutes later, he pulled out a metal detector. Chibiko took his metal detector outside, switched it on, and started walking around his yard, listening to the beeps. He checked one corner. Beep, beep, beep. He checked the next corner. Beep, beep, beep. He checked a third corner. Beep, beep, beep. He checked the final corner. Beep, beep, beep. Nothing. Chibiko felt a bit sad. He walked back towards his back door, dragging the metal detector behind him. Beep, 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 beep. Chibiko jumped with excitement. His metal detector was beeping super fast. He ran, got his spade, and dug. He dug and dug and dug until he found an old box. That's strange, he thought to himself. I guess I should open it. Inside he found a photo of himself as a baby. Wow! He sat and stared at the photo. This must have been buried here years ago, waiting for him to find it. He had completely forgotten that it had been buried here. He felt very happy. He hadn't found any gold, but this treasure was still very good. He was glad that he had spent his afternoon digging up his backyard. Even if he had made a very big mess.